Good afternoon and welcome to our webinar. It has just hit 4 o'clock, so I'll let people come and join in. I won't do any formal introductions yet. I'd like to give usually a good minute or two for people to enter. But thank you, first of all, for you guys for being on time. The fun thing is that I've got multiple screens open here, so I'm just going to see. We've got 18 already. It's great to see some faces I already recognize, including Mr. Betcher. Thank you for joining us. It's nice to see that friendly, I nearly said friendly face. I can't say friendly face. You're not really quite there. I have not got my wonderful virtual background on today. I'm being a little bit festive, and that's because I'm wearing this wonderful green vest that interrupts my green screen. So you get to see the wonders of my whiteboard and so forth as we're here. Look, as people are joining, what I'd love you to do is two things. First of all, we're going to be using a Quizizz lesson to present today. On the screen is a URL, joinmyquiz.com. I'll have my team also add this URL into the chat and a join code. The reason I like to use the lesson tool is yes, it allows me to show off what our lesson tool does, but we're going to be using it practically. I'm going to be using it to give away prizes. Yes, every PD session that we do, I always give away prizes. That is part of the fun. So if you want to make sure you are in for prizes, please also make sure that you have joined our webinar or our PD lesson. The next thing I would really like to ask you to do is quickly introduce yourself in the chat. If you're new to Zoom, you'll see there is a Zoom toolbar and there actually is a button there that says chat. I would really want you to utilize this. These are great sessions for interactivity. I'd love you to ask questions as we go along. We're going to have a bit of fun today, especially with the festive theme. So yeah, please introduce yourself in the chat. Let us know, what sector are you in particular? Are you a primary teacher? Are you a secondary high school teacher? Are you joining us from a university? What I've really loved is over the past year is really seeing us used right across the board. I was just at a primary school a couple of weeks ago where we were working with a stage 1 class, which was so much fun. I never worked in primary. I've always been a secondary teacher. A little bit herding cats, for those of you who are in primary, you'll recognize that phrase, but it was a lot of fun. Again, secondary, we've got some adult, fantastic. TAFE, great, we already have that wide range. So again, look, thank you so much for joining this webinar. I know it's holidays for most of us. I really thought, end of the year, I did want to finish off with something a bit of festive, a bit of fun, tying it to the Quiz Mania, which I'm hoping you all had a chance to play. I'm going to actually talk about how we built that and how you can do games like that for your own students. And also, obviously, to have a bit of Christmas spirit, do some fun giveaways before the year ends. So I'm going to give us 1 more minute so we can hit the 5 past before we have to begin. But again, 37 people already here. Again, if you have just joined, a little bit of a quick repeat. We haven't started yet. You have not missed anything. What I want you to do is to actually join our lesson. We're going to be using the lesson tool to start our session today. The URL has been put into the chat. If you scroll up, again, I might get my team just to put it back in there. If you go to quizizz.com/join, as it says there, and enter that code, you'll be able to join the lesson. And as an extra incentive, I am going to be giving away prizes today. We always give away prizes in our PD, and we're going to be using the lesson tools to do it. As we talk about engagement, I love the lesson tools and engagement. I'm going to be using it in practice with you as my students. So it is already 5 past start time. We have so much we want to cover. Let's get started. Please do ask questions in the chat. I won't be monitoring the chat, but my team is, and they'll be flagging things for me, especially with a small count of us at the end of the year. Very happy to make sure we can make this a little bit more interactive than we would typically. So, have we got everybody here? We've only got 22. We've got 38 people in the webinar, but only 22 people here. As I click start, which I will be doing in just a second, please don't panic. You will still be able to join us as the lesson continues. So, welcome. I could not help but play on this pun? Who could ignore such a beautiful pun as slaying engagement? I have a 16-year-old daughter who is so embarrassed by my main character energy as I talk about how we slay using quizzes. And yes, I promise that is the end of those kinds of jokes. We are all too old for this. I take that back. I'm sure many of you are much younger than I. So, first of all, for those of you who have not met me before, hello, my name is Julian Ridden. I'm the education advocate here at Quizizz. I'm based in Sydney, but today I'm not in Sydney. For some of you who may be more eagle-eyed, you may be noticing that I am in a traditional Indian outfit because I am actually at our head office, which is based in Bangalore in India. Many people assume that we're American. That we're actually based here out of Bangalore, and I was able to come here and meet the team. So I thought that I would get into some wonderful traditional dress, and I couldn't help but notice it's a wonderful Christmas color. So my role here is to be the teacher advocate, the education advocate. So I run PD sessions like this. I go to schools and run PD. If you haven't known about that, we run free PD programs for schools. If you're playing with our Free for Schools account and you want us to come out and run training, please reach out. We always love to do that. I have left my contact information online. I am also now on Blue Sky. X has become quite toxic over the years. If you use that same tag on Blue Sky, you can find me there. What I'd like to know is where you're from. Normally I ask that, and I don't want you to put it in the chat. We're going to use this fun tool here. So what I'd like you to do is tell me just which city that you're in. I'm sorry, just turning my microphone off because the audio off because I get backing music here. This is a wonderful word cloud. What I'd like you to do is just say where you are based. Let's see where everybody's coming from. One of the reasons I love this lesson tool, as we talk about engagement, even though this isn't part of my lesson plan just yet, is you can do really cool things like this if you're doing distance ed or even face-to-face ed where you don't want every student yelling across a classroom. So I can see we've got some Kiwis. Oh, by the way, Kiwis, I'm going to be doing a lot more work in New Zealand next year. I'm going to be coming down to the Interface Expo, if you're familiar with that. I also want to spend a bit of time probably around like Auckland, Wellington, and maybe a bit in other cities if there's demand. So if you've been wanting to get PD in New Zealand, really excited that I'm going to be coming down there into the next year. So great, I can see we've got all these responses coming through, people coming from all over. That is fantastic. Well, let's get into it. We're going to move to the next slide. What are we going to be covering in today? Well, introductions, we have just done that. We're going to do a quick peek at Quizmania. If you weren't familiar with it, Quizmania is a competition that we've been running for the past couple of weeks. In fact, I'm going to give you a little heads up now, but the link's going to come at the end. So yes, you have to stay for the whole thing. If you haven't entered Quizmania, Quizmania officially has finished. We're giving away some fantastic prizes. We're giving away some of the Meta Ray-Bans. Nothing better at Christmas than putting on your Ray-Bans and capturing all those embarrassing moments with your family around the Christmas table. Not recommended. Please don't take that as a suggestion. We're also giving away a whole bunch of Amazon vouchers. We're going to be extending it for 1 more hour. If you didn't even know about Quizmania, you're going to learn about it today. We're going to open it for 1 more hour if you want to enter. I won't be giving away answers today, by the way. If anybody's thinking, oh, great, I'll come to the session and find the answers. And again, at the end, my team will share the link back into the chat, and if you haven't entered yet. So I actually want to spend today, Quizmania was something that I built to be fun and engaging. And I realized as we built this competition, a fun way to end the year would be to talk about how do we make this. If you have played it, you've seen what we've done. We've got a whole bunch of fun different question types and animated GIFs. And yeah, we're going to be talking about how we built it today. And then you might like some of those ideas and you can take it into your classroom for next year. Absolutely. We have prizes and then we're going to wrap up. And this is why the lesson is important. We're going to be using the lesson to give it away. We're going to be giving away prizes for a few different things. We're going to be doing some wheel spins throughout this presentation. In fact, to show you, if you haven't been here before, what a wheel spin is, I'm going to give away our first prize right now. So if you haven't joined yet, well, you can join for the next one. One of the cool things about the lesson tool is what we call the wheel spin. It's going to spin the wheel and randomly pick a student for me to pick on. Caroline, congratulations, you have won our very first swag pack. Our team will reach out at the end, we'll get your mailing address, I'll send it to you so you have it over Christmas. This tool is actually really one of my favorites when it comes to how I can quickly engage students and why I need you to be in the lesson if you want to win prizes. So we're going to do a couple of wheel spins throughout this session. I want people to join our community. If you join our community and do a post, I'm going to do a random prize for that. And obviously, I am a teacher by trade. I'm a big believer in lifelong learning and feedback. We really do want your genuine feedback on these sessions. And yes, we're going to give away not just a swag pack, but a Christmas hamper on feedback. I'll just randomly choose a person who's given feedback. So hopefully that's an encouragement. And again, we'll give you that link at the end of this session. The swag pack, all the fun things that you know and love from us. In fact, being here at head office, I am bringing some new swag back with me. So yes, we have our socks. Yes, we have our stickers. Yes, we have the Stanley Cup of Doom. The thing is bigger than my head, but I also have a couple of new fun items that I'm bringing back from Bangalore with me that I'll be adding into that swag pack as well. So that's our prizes. The other thing that's really keen to mention at the beginning, and I will mention this at the end, is that we are nothing without our community. Thank you for joining us for this PD session. We will be issuing certificates at the end, by the way. It's not too late for this to count towards your PD hours. Now, they've changed how that process works. This will count towards an hour of PD. But the community is where people are now sharing and asking questions. And again, if you haven't joined, my team will put the link into the chat. It's currently based in Facebook. We would really love to have you join us there and become part of that community. All right, that's preamble. Now, it's not second prize time. I did it early to get people in. We're going to do prizes later on. Let's quickly talk about what Quizizz is. This is not a sales pitch. You guys have been to my PDs before, will know this. The reason I bring up this slide is to just remind people that we are more than just quizzes. In fact, do you want to know a secret? This isn't public yet, but I've discovered it and I'm going to let you in on it. Over the next 12 months, we are going to be thinking of a new brand. And the reason we're branding is because while we love quizzes, and many people love quizzes, the name is also not quite correct for what we do anymore. When we started, we did quizzes. Now we do so much more. So watch this space. Over the next few months, we're going to be coming up with a new name. But in the meantime, the reason I bring up this slide is we do assessments, we do lessons, which we're using right now. We have passages for comprehension, interactive video, which is awesome. You can bring in your own video or YouTube video and put questions on top of it, which means that students kind of watch, pause, and answer, and even flashcards. I bring up this slide because today in Quizmania, I actually used two of these tools together. I used both the assessments tool and the lessons tool, and I'm going to be showing you how in conjunction, they're a really powerful combination, especially if you want to do flipped learning practice. So that's what we're going to be focusing on today. The other thing I want to mention is if you are from Australia or New Zealand, which by the look of the word cloud is pretty much everybody, everything I am showing you is free for you in our Free for Schools plan. I am hoping you are all in Free for Schools by now. Again, I'll get my team to add the URL if you don't have it already, which is quizizz.com/school. If you sign up for our Free for School plan, you get lifetime access to everything that we'll be using, the AI, the content library, all the advanced question types. And often I have found as I speak to people is if they've been with us for a while, maybe didn't know about Free for School. So again, my team will add it to the chat. But if you're not in Free for School and you're missing features that I'm showing, make sure you go to quizizz.com/school and then you can sign up. And the best news about it is you get it for the lifetime of your account. This is not something you're going to have to worry about losing in 3 or 6 months' time. So I just want to stress that everything I'm using is stuff that you have access to on our wonderful Free for Schools tier. So as I've mentioned, it was about a month ago, our team came to me. In fact, there's all these people in the background that I never mentioned by name. And what you don't know is they're both sitting in front of me. So I'm going to happily embarrass them. Satya and Diksha sit in my team here in Bangalore and support a lot of what I do. I get to be the face of it, but they do so much of the work. Satya came to me about a month and a half ago and said, hey, we've got this idea. We want to do like a fun kind of quiz. And I went, that's awesome. Australians and Kiwis, we love pub quizzes. They looked at me like I was mad. Pub quiz, and we realized that maybe that may not be the right angle to go with, so we launched Quizmania. And the idea was to have a bit of fun at the end of the year. For those of you who haven't played Quizmania yet, and again, if you haven't, you'll have a chance at the end. We're going to open up for another hour. The idea of Quizmania is I created the most random of quizzes. What are the most obscure facts? What are the things that nobody in their right mind should know? You know, in what state of America is it illegal to have an ice cream in your back pocket on the street? What is the longest named town in the world? We wanted to kind of have a bit of fun with these kind of absurd questions to celebrate the silly season. You can see how we tied that together. And it gave you, as teachers, a chance to also see what these tools are like from students' perspective, because we're using our tools to deploy it. So if you have played Quizmania, fantastic. Thank you. I hope you had fun. I'd love to hear in the chat, by the way, if you think you got questions right or wrong. In fact, in the chat, just give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down or a Y or an N if you've actually played Quizmania. It'd be great for us to kind of get an idea of how many of you have already played. Again, thumbs up, thumbs down, or a Y or an N. Let us know if you had a play. In fact, I'm going to quickly bring up the chat window so I can have a look. Oh, a whole bunch of you. Yes, Jody, it was incredibly random and I was so proud of it. Okay, no idea. So first of all, please join our community. We post it in our community. We do lots of fun games and activities. We also put it onto our mailing list. And I know many of you hate mailing lists. We do try not to spam people, but we also share cool things like Quizmania. So as I said, I'm going to talk about it today. You're going to see the cool things that we did. And after this, even though we officially closed yesterday, we're going to open up for one more hour. So if you want to have a play, you can and still be in the run for the prizes. So having mentioned what Quizmania was about, the idea of today's session is to talk about how we built it. So if you're in the lesson, I'm going to get you to come out of the lesson and come back to the Zoom screen. If you've been watching the Zoom screen, that's fantastic. Please, stay put. What I'm actually going to do now is I'm going to stop sharing this screen. I'm going to share another one. I actually want to go through it and talk about what Quizmania was and how we built it with the intent on being completely engaging. So I'm going to share my whole screen, which is always a little bit scary. I hope nothing inappropriate pops up. And first of all, I'm going to talk about what Quizmania was. Now, you're seeing an early draft here. Why the early draft? Because I don't want to give out the answers to the real questions, because that would be cheating, and I don't want to get visited by the Grinch over Christmas. So what I have here is, originally we called it Absurdities before we called it Quizmania, if you're just wondering why we have that there. And what you're seeing here is what's called a lesson tool. Now, again, I'm just giving you a quick overview. I will be unpacking this and showing you how this was done from scratch. I just want to give this overview of what this tool is. What the lessons tool allows us to do is, first of all, either create or import slides that we want to use for content. In my case, an introduction and some nice headings. We've all been to pub quizzes before, right? Where, okay, we're going to do this category. Well, we came up with our fun categories like ludicrous laws. And again, I don't want to ruin too many surprises. After that, we then went through and I'm able to add questions into the mix. I can have both content and interactive content mixed and matched. So for those of you who played Quizmania, you would have seen you were able to read a piece of information. In my case, the introduction, this is what we're doing. You've got these nice kind of title slides, and then we went into the questions. And the questions are the things that if you've been using quizzes for a while that you know and love. And I used lots of different question types. We used multiple choice and drop down and matching, audio response, which was a lot of fun. Each of these designed to be an engaging activity. One of my frustrations, and again, I don't throw any brands under a bus, because this has also been about how the technology has moved, not just how our thinking has moved. Traditionally, when we did online kind of activities in quizzes or formative or summative assessment, we used multiple choice because that's what the tools gave us. We want to be so much more than that. We want to be inclusive. We want to be engaging. We want to allow for higher order thinking. And so because of that, we have over 15 different question types. And so using lesson, we're able to mix and match these things together and use some very fun ways of giving feedback. For instance, things like animated GIFs, things that add a bit of fun and a bit of tone. Again, I am intentionally not sliding my screen any further because I do not want to share the questions. I don't want you to know what's coming. That's for you to discover. What I want to talk about is how we got here how I developed it, some of the logic behind those reasons from the engagement perspective. And then, as I said, please ask questions as we go, and my team will flag them with me, and I'll try and answer as much as I can. So I'm going to go back to my front page of Quizizz, and I'm going to pretend I'm doing a new activity. So I'm going to go create. So again, traditionally, most of you have probably clicked on this assessment tool, and you've gone to either create from scratch or you've used our awesome AI tool, and that's awesome. I am not going to go to assessment today. What I'm actually going to do is go create, and I'm going to create a lesson. So many of you are probably saying, I've never heard of the lesson tool. By the way, it's been in front of you for about 8 months now. I always love that people just don't know to look for it. And so even though it's right on that front page, people don't see it. The idea of a lesson tool is to make it really fun, interactive ways of us delivering content along with activity. This is used both for online learning. Okay, maybe I'm doing, like I am, I'm doing a digital exercise. My students are not in front of me. I use it in the class a lot, especially if I've got more dynamic seating plans like pod layout where not all the students are facing the front, so that they can see my slides on their screen. And more importantly, if I'm wanting to do things like, I want to ask a student a question, I use spin the wheel rather than looking like I'm picking on a student. Or I'll use a word cloud instead of having everybody yell things out. And students who don't like yelling out are actually find it easier to participate when they're typing into a screen. Again, we'll talk about some of the cool things about lesson today. That's what we're going to be doing. But if you haven't played with it, it's an awesome way of engaging students, both either in front of you with one-to-one, online, and obviously if we're doing flipped learning practice. Because I don't just want a quiz, I actually want to maybe share some information, watch this, read this, and then answer this question. Cool ways that we can use lesson. You'll notice there are 3 ways that we can do a lesson. First of all, we are really deeply partnered with Google. And if you weren't aware of this, we are. I'm actually going to open up my Google Slides. We're not going to spend time diving deep into this today, by the way, but for those of you who are not aware of this, I actually built my deck here in Google. Why? I'm a Google fan. I have to give a shout out. He's only here as an attendee. He hates it when I do this, but Chris Betcher is here. He is one of the best Google advocates, experts that I have ever known. And so, yeah, if you have Google questions, feel free to hit him up on socials. Awesome guy. Sorry to throw you under the bus there, Chris, but you're here. I had to. So you'll see that I've actually built my slide deck of content here in Google Slides. It's very visual, allows me to have a lot of fun. Things like animated GIFs. People don't realize you can use animated GIFs. I create this kind of nice animated background. It's just a GIF that I then put into the slide deck. What many people don't know, though, is if you're in Google, if you go to extensions, you can actually install Quizizz for Google Slides. Now, again, we're not going to focus on this particular tool today, but I want you to be aware of it if you want to play with it over Christmas yourself. If you go to extensions, there is an add-on store. You can search for Quizizz. And what you're seeing right now, just move this out of the way, is straight from Google, I can now add multiple choice questions into this Google slide deck. I can turn it into a lesson straight from here. If you are a big Google user, you can do it directly from Google without even being in our tool. Now, by the way, we don't just support Google, we support Microsoft as well. And that's where the import slides comes in, which, by the way, is what I did for this particular activity. I go import slides, and you can import PowerPoint, you can import Google Slides, you can import PDFs if you have a slide deck there. And that way, if you've built in a tool that you prefer, and by the way, Keynote, I am an Apple user. I often would build in Keynote before I use Google, and I would just save it as a PowerPoint deck that I could then import into my lesson here. Sadly, the way that Apple structures the file, we can't import a Keynote file, but you can in Keynote save it as a PowerPoint and import it. So I'm going to import from my Google Drive. I want you to see exactly what I did. I had built my content, and again, this could be a real lesson that you've got. In my case here, I'm going to bring in the one that we're using today. Again, I'm intentionally not bringing in my Quizmania one because I don't want to show you the answers. In fact, let's go my History of Australia deck. Let's take a quick shift. I'm going to use that to bring more of a classroom context. So when I go to import from Google Drive, and again, the same works if you want to import from PowerPoint, you'll see there's a button down the bottom for PowerPoint as well. We are agnostic. We want to play with everybody. I'm just mentioning Google because that's what I'm using. By doing that, you'll see that it's now brought in and identified all of those slides. I can choose to bring in every slide. I can choose to bring in individual slides. It's up to you. For today, because I want to do this relatively quickly, I'm just going to bring in Actually, I'll just do that. I'm just going to bring in some key content slides, just enough for us to demonstrate how this particular tool worked. When you click import, you'll have two options. Import as images or import as editable slides. You'll see that images is recommended. It's what I use most of the time. If you do it as an image, it's going to turn it into a static image in our platform. So in other words, you can't edit it in our platform, but it's going to look exactly the way it looked when you built it. This is great, especially if you're like me and very design focused. I like my fancy fonts. I like my little, my graphics certain way with shadows. Doing it this way, it will look identical to what you created. When you go import as editable slides, the format will change because we will only use the fonts that we have. And if you've used some special Keynote or PowerPoint effects that we don't have, then it won't render. So yeah, if you're just doing like a basic deck, it's just got some text and some images, import as editable slides will be perfect for you. But if you have more advanced designs where you want to make sure it looks exactly the way you've designed it, import as images. And that's what I'm going to use because this is, again, I'm showing you exactly how we built our wonderful Quizmania. Once you've done that, you'll notice that my slides have now been brought into this lesson tool. I can click through, I can see each one. And again, this is a real deck that I taught from many years ago. I apologize, I'm going to show how long it's been since I actually actively taught in a classroom. But the beauty of this is now that I have this content, I can now augment it with additional Quizizz functionality. So let's just say after the history of Australia, I want to ask where everybody was from, just like you saw me do at the beginning of this particular session. When I've done this, I can now go and say, I want to add a new slide. And you'll notice we actually have both what you expected and probably what you didn't expect. Yes, I can add traditional slides, slides with titles, slides with headers, slides that have media, some basic templates. Absolutely. And by the way, you don't have to build in PowerPoint or Google Slides. If you want to build it directly in our platform, please go for it. You know, it's pretty powerful. But underneath this, we also have some really cool options. First of all, I mentioned that we have interactive video. Again, for time, and because I didn't use video in Quizmania, I'm not going to be talking about it. But I mentioned that you can bring in video, that you can put questions on the timeline. The video will play, it will pause, the question will pop up on top of the video. A really cool way of engaging students in the age of TikTok, where they just usually just keep scrolling through video and it's not engaging. I'm not going to be talking about that, but you can add interactive video. Underneath, we also have the question types. As I said, I want to add a quick question of where did you come from? So I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to go through and say, I'm going to bring up the word cloud. Now, again, so many cool ways you can do this if you want to engage. One of the other tools I love using is Draw. And if we have time, I'll come back to it. But in Draw, you can upload a picture of a map and the students will circle where they're from. It's really cool. But again, I'm talking about what we built. So I'm going to show you how I did it. So with word cloud, if I click on that, you'll see it's now created a word cloud slide. And again, I'm hoping most of you have used Quizizz by now, so you know you've got a question, and up underneath it's where they're going to put their answers. So I'm going to put here, where do you live? Tell us your country, right? Nice, simple word cloud. But again, to make this engaging, text doesn't quite do it, right? Oh, and tell us your county. It would help if I could type. So I want to make this engaging. So there are a couple of things I like to do. Many people miss these buttons up the top. This allows me to add photos, audio, or video into the question itself. I'm going to start with video. If you've got video, you can go to YouTube, or in Australia, I know many schools use ClickView. If you're a ClickView user, you can also bring in your ClickView. You can actually browse straight from here to find a video to add to your question that they watch and then do the word cloud from. Not what we're after. Also, as I mentioned, we try and work with all the different cloud tools. So Google Drive, OneDrive, upload from your computer. If you have a video that you own, that you've got, you can do that as well. Not going to use that today, but it's really cool if you didn't know. You can actually use this with just about every question type. So it's great if you want to do more engaging, especially more multimodal, or if you're doing things like, languages, ESL, where you want them to listen to something or watch something and then answer. Really powerful. The next is audio. And yes, it does exactly what you think. I can actually record audio straight in. Now, again, if you're a language teacher, you can actually use it to say, ja, guten Morgen, mein Name ist Julian Rindner, ich komme aus Sydney, Australia, wo wohnst du? The student now has to understand what I said. I said, my name is Julian, I come from Sydney, where do you live? and they could then respond. So again, I'm sure you can think of really cool ways that you can use audio to make things interactive or to move to different levels. You can record directly, or you can also upload your own. There is a question in Quizmania, which is an audio question. You have to listen and say, what is that sound? I'm not going to tell you what it is. You get to discover it. And that was done by using exactly this particular feature. I saw a hand raised. Please just feel free to type your questions into the chat. And my team who are sitting here with me will flag it with me. I'm really happy for you to ask questions on the fly, and then I'll respond to it as soon as I can. The last option I have here is to add image, and this is one that I used in every single question of Quizmania. I think it's really great when you can have images that either illustrate the question you're asking, or if I'm using it as engagement as a focus, something that's thematically attached to it. If you want to add an image to your question, absolutely you can upload from your device. I can go click, or I can click and drag something in. So as I say in the classics, here is something I prepared earlier. I'm going to go to my pictures. Actually, I'll go to my downloads folder. No, they're not that downloads folder. You're seeing the mess that is my computer. You know, I want to have Santa flying, so I can just click and drag to bring that in. And that image is there. Or again, you can click on the browse button. The real power of this, though, is if you don't have an image handy, most of the time I don't, I can also go search. And this is a Google search. And for those of you who are thinking about copyright, which, by the way, we all should be, this is a Creative Commons image search. These are images that we're allowed to use. So I want to find a picture of a Santa map, right? I want to find a picture of Santa map because it's Christmas. There's Google finding all those images. I've asked where you've come from. I want a nice kind of festive picture. I can click on it, make sure that I like it. You can even crop it. Actually, I just want to focus on this bit of the image. And when I hit save, it's going to copy it, it's going to edit it and put it straight into my question, as simple as that. So that's the way that we can do images. There's a third way, which I'm saving for a little bit later. So hold it, but there's a third really powerful and engaging way that I like to use images that I'll come back to later. Now, I know there was a question asked earlier, so I'm just going to open up the chat. Ingrid, again, yeah, we want to be a lot of the tools. If you've been using Nearpod, if you've been using Pear Deck, if you've been using Edpuzzle, we have a whole suite of tools that pretty much mean you can do pretty much everything you did in all those things in here. Also, I'm just having a quick look. The next question here was from Host? And by the way, I have been saying Christmas, but also Happy Hanukkah for those who are celebrating from the Jewish faith. I also want to make sure we're inclusive. I grew up in the biggest Jewish enclave in Sydney, and so I used to love that. I went straight from Hanukkah into Christmas, and I just didn't stop eating. It was a wonderful time of year. The next question was import edible slides option. I'm just trying to catch up. No, I think that's already been answered. So my team's answered. I'll move on. All right. So this here is, first of all, a fun way that I can take a lesson, bring in my content, and then add this first kind of question type to it. Once you've set up your question, this is a pretty basic word cloud. I'm just going to go and say, I'm happy with that, go back to slides. And now, just like any slide program, Google, PowerPoint, Keynote, I can see my slides down the side, and I can choose to drag and drop, move it around should I need to. But I now have a word cloud ready to go. Let's now talk about the next question type that I use a fair bit, because again, I want to go through the ones that are specifically built for engagement, or that are particularly good for engagement. The next one I used was I wanted to do something that was more than just multiple choice. I wanted things that are a bit more dynamic. And so what I started doing was using matching. So as I've clicked on matching, again, you'll notice that the interface is always the same. We've tried to keep this really nice and consistent. I can still put the question up the top. I still have the audio, the video, the images options. But underneath, instead of a word cloud where the student's going to type in a prompt, I can now have all these matching boxes. Now, of course, you can have as many of these as you want. If you don't want this many, I can click on the bin and have less. If I need to add more, I can always go through and add more by clicking on the plus button. The way that this works is I can go through and say, match the clothing to the body part. Again, I'm having to stop myself from using questions that we used in Quizmania. And up the top, I can say, well, actually, let's do the body parts first. I have like a foot, and I have a neck, and I have the chest, and we'll just do one more, and I have legs, right? So they're the different body parts, and let's get rid of that one there. And up the top, I can do the prompts. And again, I'm doing this from an engagement perspective. I can put text and go sock, but you know what would be better? To go up here and to insert an image and to find a picture of Christmas socks. And it's going to find a whole bunch of really cool pictures of Christmas socks. And I go, oh, I really like that one there. Perfect for what I want. I can click on Christmas sock, go save. And then I have which body parts that's going to go on. Let's go chest, just for one more example. And again, I want to make sure I keep myself moving around. So let's go for I'm going to misspell this. I'm really regretting suggesting this now. I want some kind of Hanukkah jumper. Happy Hanukkah. Perfect. I like that. So that's now going to be my Hanukkah jumper. Now, again, these are just examples. I'm sure you can think of how this works. But again, we think about engagement. When we try and make things a bit more multimodal, there is so much evidence. And if you've taught, you know this, that students aren't just visual learners or oral learners or tactile learners. That idea of students fitting into a bucket has long been debunked. Students really like this variety, and then they'll connect with ones that resonate with them. So in Quizmania, there's a couple of matching questions where, yes, I had images that you had to match. This is exactly how I did it. Next one I really want to highlight is one that I find, and again, all of these are also in your quizzes. I really should stress that. If you're just doing a standard quiz, you also have all of these particular question types. I'm just using them inside my lesson. The next one is one that many people don't know we have, and it is wonderful, is audio response. Now, audio response is great. The student is going to be recording audio back to me. Now I'm going to ask a question here. What's a good question I can ask? I have not come prepared with my own question. So I'm going to say, what is the name of the Festival of Lights that comes from India? Where I live today, I'm out in the northwest of Sydney, which has a very large Indian Pakistani population. Why do I mention this? I love that this festival, which is Diwali, starts in kind of October, November, and they put up lights. It's a festival of lights. And they just stay up and become Christmas lights. So in my neighborhood, Christmas begins at the beginning of November. It's a thing I love about multicultural society. So I've got a question here. What is the name of the festival? And the students are not going to be typing in a response. They're going to record. And by the way, it could be a longer answer, shorter answer. It's up to you. And that's why down the bottom, you can specify how long you want that audio to be. Maybe you want it to be a more of a reflective exercise where the student's going to share their thoughts on something. I can go for a 5-minute response. To say the word Diwali, I just need them to go and have 5 seconds. In fact, I'm going to give them 10 seconds in case they stutter or get stuck. This is not the fantastic bit. While this is awesome, the fantastic bit is that Quizizz can use the AI to automatically mark that question as correct or not. So right here, I can do one of two things. I can type in the answer. The answer is Diwali. Or it's very important when I'm actually sitting here in Bangalore with my team opposite me to make sure that I get these right. I can go through that. And if they say either of these words, they're going to be told it's correct. It's fantastic. We're using speech to text to turn it into text, and we're using our AI to go through and measure it. Now, by the way, that's great if you know a specific answer. But do you know what? The student might say the Festival of Lights or the Diwali Festival. They might use different wording. Our AI is smart enough. The answer should include reference to the Diwali Festival. Pronunciation is not important as long as it is close, right? So now if they say Diwali, Deepavali, because the AI actually is going to recognize that. I apologize that you can all see that I can't type. I'm just going to let you guys assume that my typing is the worst. But you can actually talk to this like it's an assessor. So you can actually say the answer should include this. And by the way, it also works pretty well, not perfect, but pretty well with other languages. But I do encourage you to test it first. But I do speak German. I've been testing it with some German vocab and a little bit of French vocab. Again, it's not built specifically for language education. So if you want to use it for languages, do test it. But yeah, it's pretty cool. And the fact that our AI is going to look for context means that you can do things like, I might ask them for what are the stages of the water cycle, and they're going to give an audio response. But I could actually say, if they list 2 of the 4, count it as correct. And as long as they say 2 of the 4, we'll count it as correct. It's like you're talking to a marker. So these are fun ways that we can use these question types. So in Quizmania, there is an audio response where you're actually expected to make some kind of noise, and I'll let you discover it. Again, I don't want to ruin the surprise, but as you do that, it's again a fun way of making this learning a bit more higher order thinking, if we're talking from a pedagogical perspective, but also a bit more engaging. I'm not just typing. Now, I have saved my most boring one for last, but I've actually want to still show it for a very important reason. The next question type we are going to talk about is multiple choice. Multiple choice is still a great go-to for engagement. So again, if we're talking about higher order thinking, I really want to assess knowledge, multiple choice is often these days losing popularity because, well, it's not really knowledge, it's a process of elimination, the answer's in front of them. But when I'm trying to engage students, I often use multiple choice as a fun way of doing it, but I want to talk about another feature that I haven't mentioned yet. So again, I'm going to go through and let's ask a question. Is Die Hard a Christmas movie? Now, I need to warn you all, I will die on this hill. I can actually go down and say yes and no. And yes, I could put pictures in. We've already illustrated that, so I'm not going to do that. The other cool thing that we can do in every question type, I'm just going to highlight it here, is you can also add an answer explanation, because remember, we're built to be a formative tool. We're not here to be a big summative testing tool. People do twist us that way, and that's great, but we're built to be a fun, formative teaching and learning tool that's gamified. So one thing that I will always do is add answer explanations that explain the answer to the student. And I'm going to go, yes, it is a Christmas movie. It has Santa, carols, and lots of ho, ho, ho. Or again, I'm having a bit of fun for the sake of this demo. But the reason I wanted to mention this is not only can you add answer explanations into any question type, which is great for the students to understand it, but in Quizmania, I wanted to also make these fun and engaging. And I mentioned there was a third way of doing images that I hadn't mentioned. And that third way is pasting a link. A tool that I use, and I used to use this all the time, even when I was teaching, is Giphy. Giphy, if you're not familiar with it, is a website where people make fun animated GIFs. There are literally millions of them. If you've ever seen an animated meme, it's probably either come from or is on here. I love using these because they're fun, they're animated, and a good way of engaging students. And in every answer explanation that we have in Quizmania, I try to have a bit of fun with some of these GIFs. So I'm actually going to go up here and just search for Die Hard. And it's going to find all these things. Oh no, Die Hard isn't a Christmas movie. And that's not the GIF I'm going to use. I'm going to use this ho, ho, ho. All right, again, as you're doing this, please make sure you're doing what's age appropriate for your students. We are having a bit of fun here. In fact, welcome to the party, pal. Everybody knows that. One of the cool things I can do with Giphy is, again, if people have used it before, they usually go here and they right click and they save it. They do a multiple step process. You don't have to. I just go up top, I click share, and you can go copy link. So just a quick click, copy link. Now in Quizizz, I'm going to paste that link, and it's now automatically going to bring that fun animated GIF into here to show with the answer explanation. Waiting for it to happen there. There we go. Again, you can still crop it if you want to. But now when they answer the question, we get this kind of fun, engaging, have an explanation, but a GIF that will go with it. Now, again, this always depends on the subject matter you're doing. It always depends on the age groups that you're working with. I don't want to, not recognize those things. but I was doing high school. In fact, for those of you, again, who haven't met me before, my background was modern and ancient history. I used to love using fun little animations to try and liven up what many students would often find to be a dry and dull subject. I disagree with that wholeheartedly, but that perception is always something that I had to work to shift. And things like GIFs were a great way of doing that. So that is some of the key ways that we built Quizmania. We use different types of questions. I'm just going to bring this up for a second. In fact, I'm just going to leave this particular screen just so you can see. For those, again, I know people here are all at different level of the learning journey with Quizizz. These are all the different question types that we currently support. Multiple choice, fill in the blank, are really popular. We have a whole bunch of open-ended styles. As I mentioned, we've got drawing, video response, audio response, open-ended. Remember how I just mentioned that you can auto-mark audio? You can also auto-mark open-ended questions. We actually did this in a webinar previous. If you go back and look at our previous webinars, in fact, I think it was our last one with Matt Esterman. I showed how you can use the AI marking in open-ended. And we also have those higher order things like the matching, drag and drop, labeling, categorizing, and even math types, which again, math can be made very interactive. Most tools are just, we're treating it as a language, right? We're asking things in words that they have to answer, where here we can make it more engaging by actually saying, no, I want you to interact with these slopes, with these planes. I actually want to show you, I want you to show me how this quadratic should actually map out here on the graph, or how this exponential should be. And then I can go through and say, well, the correct answer is going to look like this, but the student is actually going to be the one who's going to be answering a certain question. All these tools allow us to make our teaching and learning fun. Before we wrap up this particular session, there is one last thing I really want to highlight. Now, this is not tied to Quizmania, but it is very much tied to engagement and how we can use Quizizz to quickly make things more engaging for our students. I'm actually going to go through and I'm going to create a quick quiz. I'm going to do it from AI, and I'm going to actually upload a past paper. This past paper is very dull and very boring, intentionally so, by the way. It is a summative assessment. I have to find the correct folder. Give me 1 second here. Where's my quizzes folder, my demo folder, and look, here I have a past paper on geography. In fact, that's not good. What's a good one? Let's actually go economics. So this is a HSC past paper. I think this is a 2022 past paper. In New South Wales, they always start with the multiple choice component. I've also used it to bring in things like NAPLAN tests or exams that we've had. I'm going to leave everything as automatic just for the sake of this very quick exercise. Again, if you don't know how to use our import tools, please do come to our PDs next year or view our previous PDs. We have fantastic things on these. I'm sorry, I'm trying to do 2 things at once and I'm failing miserably. This is for year 12. But the reason I'm bringing this in is I want to show you how, if you have existing content in any other platform, maybe you built something in Kahoot, maybe you built something in Microsoft or Google Forms that you go, this is great, but I really want to make it a more fun, engaging activity. Our AI tool is also really good at doing this for you. So you can see right away it has imported those multiple choice questions. Again, I know we're nearly out of time today. You'll have to take my word for it that this is word for word. And please do play with it yourself. You'll be able to see this in action. It's a wonderful tool that just does what it says on the box. So it's brought in these questions, but it's even brought in the multiple choice, and it knows which one was the correct one. There was no key there. Our tool is using the AI to do that. As always, please, you're the teacher. Don't assume we've got it right. Yeah, we're 99%. I'm pretty proud of that, but we're not 100. Do always check this. But the point I want to make here is that this is not an engaging exercise. This is a summative assessment to test their knowledge. I want to turn this into a teaching and learning exercise for my year 11s to use as a practice task. So on the left-hand side, we have this what's called Quizizz AI Actions. I actually call this Quizizz Augment. The reason I call it Quizizz Augment is it allows me to take what I brought in, be it something that I created or something that I imported, and I can click on more options and do really fun things. Now, first of all, we have a button that says make it fun. Use this with caution. When we go to make it fun, this is great for usually kind of that younger age group. It's going to change a lot of context. I'm actually going to do it so you can see what it does. This is probably not going to work particularly well on an economics paper. When we just click on make it fun, it's going to try and reword things. It's going to make things real world scenario. It's going to try and add some names into it. It's going to try and add a bit of flavor. So here, what's the role of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development? Very straightforward, direct question. Imagine you're part of a secret club with these people and your mission is to make the world a better place. What role would an organization play in this adventure? You can see how we've taken this very direct, static, summative question, and we have tried to make it a bit more fun. As I said, with an economics paper, we are going to have mixed results here because it's not necessarily a subject good for that. But if you're doing geography, if you're doing things with English, with languages, this is a fantastic tool that can usually, with one click, give you huge success. Sorry, this is in the way. I'm just going to get rid of that. I'm just going to go and discard that because I want to show you a couple of other options. What I normally do is I'm a little bit more specific about what I want to choose. So first of all, there is a button that just says convert this into real world scenarios. This one click is going to read these existing questions and rewrite them as real world scenarios. Again, think of your subject area. This doesn't work for history. You know, I don't want to take this and all of a sudden it's going to try and rewrite it as a real world scenario. They already are real world scenarios. But with maths, with science, with economics, this can actually be very powerful. And you can see some examples just as I scroll. You know, Mira's preparing for a geography exam. She needs to know which of the following. In a town where Ashi and Kabir live, the labour force participation rate has dropped. What could be a reason? It's gone through and taken these dry questions and it's gone through and given it some fun narrative. I'm going to save that. So that's just one quick step. Next thing I do, definitely on top of this, is I can add my students' names into the questions. So we've got Chris here. We've got Julian here. I've got Satcha sitting here in front of me, as is Deeksha. You know, you can add as many names here as you want, and it's going to take those questions, and instead of using random names, it's going to use the names of my students. And imagine the fun. Again, this is not just for young kids. People see this and they kind of go, oh, primary would love this. I have used this in vocational ed. And they actually get quite a giggle when they start recognizing that this particular electrical task actually is mentioning, you know, John has electrocuted himself because he didn't use the ground correctly. Like, they do get a good laugh out of it, and another way of adding an engagement element. I'm going to save that. Two more examples. I can add a thematic narrative. So again, always think about the subject that you're working with. There are times that this may or may not be appropriate. But I'm going to go, this economic thing, let's actually give it a Christmas theme. A Christmas theme. And now it's going to take these real world scenario questions, which have my students' names in it. Notice I'm doing these all on top of each other. And it's now going to try and make them sound a bit Christmassy. Satcha is preparing for a Christmas-themed international fair and comes across this organization, and he wants to understand its role. It's still asking the same thing, but with now, it's real world, it's got Satcha's name in it, and it's related to Christmas. So again, I'll let you play with these, but these are really fun ways to take dull, I hate using that word, but they are kind of your dull, summative, pragmatic style papers or NAPLAN or examples that you've already pre-built, and to convert them into something that's going to be a bit more fun. The last one I want to mention is actually whatever you come up with. What do I mean by that? These here are just our ideas. You know, convert to other question types. You brought something in from Kahoot, but you want it to not just be multiple choice. Click this button, it's going to convert them into the other engaging question types. Drag and drop, matching. But let's quickly do this. I wasn't going to, but we have a bit of time. The past paper that I brought in was all multiple choice. So now it's taken this Christmas-themed real-world scenario with Satcha, and instead of being multiple choice, it's now going to be a drag and drop, or it's going to be a drop down. It's going to automatically find styles that will be more engaging and maybe more higher order thinking. But the point I actually was going to make is these are just our ideas. Up the top, you can do whatever you want. Age these down to reading levels. Add more complexity to this question type. Or for engagement, make these sound like they were said by Santa. Whatever it is that you want the AI to do, you can actually go into that top box and ask it whatever you want. Ho, 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 Satcher is on a merry quest to learn about international organizations. Sadly, Santa doesn't say a lot of things that are very Santa-y, so I think we're going to get a lot of ho, ho, ho's in here. But you can say, okay, make this sound like Shakespeare. Make this sound, actually, you know what? This is always a good laugh and a good way to end the year. No politics involved in it. It is just this person has a very distinctive speaking style. Make these sound like Donald Trump. Again, I only mention this because we all know he has a very distinctive patter, speaking style. So we've got these real world Christmas questions. How would Donald Trump say it? Folks, Satcher is looking into these big international groups and he stumbles upon this. What's the role? Folks, let me tell you, he's studying hard. In this great town, you can see that tone's kind of coming in. This top box isn't just about tone. Whatever it is that you want the AI to do, that you think could shift it in a way that would make this particular existing content more engaging for your students, you can do so. All right, so let's go back to my deck. Hopefully that's given you a whole, actually, I'll just go to this slide. Hopefully that's given you a whole bunch of ideas on how you can use things like our lessons and quizzes functionality together to create more engaging learning activity. Again, if you want to learn more about lessons, we did cover this in a previous webinar, so please go look at our history. You can find all of these in our community, by the way. And if not, we always run these PD sessions. We'll be doing more PD sessions on lesson, on the AI, on all these tools going into next year. But hopefully that this has given you some ideas. If you want to see all of these ideas in action from a student's perspective, please join Quizmania. You'll get a link in a few slides' time. What I want to do first of all is mention about feedback. I mentioned we had a few prizes to give away. One of our prizes is going to be for feedback, including a Christmas hamper that I'll send out. Now, sadly, I can't guarantee you'll have it in time for Christmas, but we are going to give one away. We do genuinely want your feedback, good and bad. How can we ensure that these PD sessions meet your needs? We'd love to hear from you. And again, my team will have put the link into the chat. I do want to give away one more prize pack here. So again, I think most people are in the lesson now. So let's spin that wheel one more time and see who gets the last prize pack from this live session. We spin, and Elsa, congratulations. You've won our second prize pack. Again, our team will reach out to you. We'll get your address. We'll ship that to you over the Christmas break. Before we finish up, a couple of quick things. As I mentioned, Quizmania did officially finish yesterday, and most of you didn't know about it. So we have opened it up for one more hour. We can't do it for more than that because, again, legally it does have its close time. But our team will put the link into the chat. Please play it. I said, not only are we giving away prizes, and that's obviously how we're trying to encourage you to have a go. We're giving away, I said, some Meta Ray-Bans, the smart AI glasses. We've got a whole bunch of Amazon gift cards. But more importantly, it means that you can see all of what I showed you in action as a student. Quizmania is built using everything that I just showed you. So see it in action and see just how good your random knowledge of ridiculous facts are. And I do apologize if you can't do the next hour, it does have to close, but we will be running Quizmania throughout the year. We had so much fun with it this year that we will be running different Quizmanias on different topics throughout 2025. And if you want to know when they're happening, if you want to be in there to win prizes, well, the best way to do that is to make sure you join our community. And again, the link was put into the chat earlier. I'll ask my team to put the community link back into the chat. It is a Facebook group at the moment. And again, I recognize that not everyone wants to use Facebook. It's just, it was one tool that we found lots of teachers in. We are looking next year at what other tools we can utilize to better engage. I want you to know that we recognize that, but for today, that's where we are. So on that note, right on the hour, it is so rare for me to finish on time. I want to thank you all for joining us for this Quizmania edition of Slaying Engagement. I will have a quick look in the last minute or so just at the questions coming through, see if there's anything that I haven't answered. Doesn't look so. If you do have any quick questions, please feel free to throw them into the link. On behalf of myself and all of the Quizizz team, we hope you have a fantastic break over over the holiday period, be it if you're celebrating Christmas or Hanukkah, or maybe you're just spending time with family or friends, or maybe you're just having that breather as you relax and recoup for a busy teaching 2025. Whatever the December January break brings you, we hope it is safe, we hope it is fun filled, and we really look forward to hopefully catching up with you next year. So on behalf of all of us here, ho ho ho, season's greetings, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah. I hope you have a fantastic break, and we'll see you soon. Thanks again, everybody.